Maya and the Rising Dark, for me at least, was kind of a sleeper hit because I didn't know that that one was going to be as good as I felt like it was. It's a children's book. It's by Raina Byron, and I picked it up because there's a black girl on the cover of it, and nothing against white authors. There's just not enough representation for black girls, and I love Maya because Maya is me. I actually compare it to a book later, but we'll talk about that when I get to that book. So Maya and the Rising Dark. Maya is a small black girl. Not small, she's like 12, 13, something like that. And she doesn't like math, and she's been told she's gifted. She likes Orisha, and then, like, right off jump, her classroom, like, freezes and turns gray. So already I'm here for it. She's got these two friends that she has, Eli and Frankie. Eli is very superstitious and believes in like ghosts and all that stuff. Frankie is very logical and like, no, there's a scientific explanation for this. So her dad has this job where he like goes and does something. Maya doesn't actually know what he does, and there's a reason for that. And he has trained her with like her staff or whatever, and that's pretty cool. And Frankie and Maya go out after her dad leaves again, and like Maya's really worried because she doesn't want him to leave again, and it seems like he's always gone. And what happens after that? Uh, she Maya also has a dream the night before they go out. She has a dream about a guy who comes and like steals all the color from the world. That was weird. Um, yeah. So all of their neighbors also seem to know something, which is weird to them. And there are Darkbringers, there's a Veil, and there's a War. The Darkbringers are just exactly what they sound like. They're the antagonists of the book. The Veil is what's keeping them away, and the war is just between the Orisha and the Darkbringers. And Maya's dad has been charged with keeping the Veil together, but it's falling apart because the dude on the other side, the guy who steals all the color from the world, he has been making it so that. Sorry, my brain is trying to clear up. There's a lot happening in my life right now. Um, he is trying to get back to power and come back to our world so that he can destroy everything. It's kind of an urban fantasy. That's what seems to be my favorite type of fantasy I've noticed. Uh, and her dad ends up getting kidnapped and is in the other world, which is bad because then the veil, if it falls apart, then that's kind of it. So Maya and her friends find out that they are all half Orisha because they all have powers. Um, Eli can turn invisible, and I don't remember what Frankie can do. I think it's just like a bright, like a flashbang, like a bright light. And at the end of the book, Maya's asked to take over looking after the veil. Like that's her ability because her who her dad is. Um, and the uh the veil, like finding it is like a hard place to find it. Apparently one of the gates was at Comic-Con that year, which I thought was very odd. But the adults are like, we can't go back over and save him, and Maya's like, that's my dad and I like literally need to go save him, and all of the adults are like, no, stay. So Maya and her friends decide to sneak away because of course they do, and they go into the dark and to get her dad back, and they get a little bit lost, and apparently Maya has like a heart problem that almost gets them killed, but they're fine. And they're over there and they're looking for her dad, and eventually they do find him. And yeah, so Maya's staff, her dad leaves his staff for her, and it gets stolen, but she gets it back. It's just a conduit, though. She doesn't actually need it, but she gets it back, and she gets her dad back as well, even though it was a trap and the dude wanted to kill them. Um, LOS. Who is LOS? Lord of Shadows. That's his name. LOS. So Maya isn't able to actually kill the Lord of Shadows, which is fine because there's a second book. Maya isn't actually able to kill the Lord of Shadows, but she is able to save her dad, and she and her friends are able to get out of the dark side. Her mom was angry, but the adults weren't doing anything. There's a trope in fantasy that I've noticed a lot that's starting to feel more realistic these days, where it's like The adults aren't doing anything and they aren't listening. So the children have to take it upon themselves to solve the problem before this shit goes to hell, which I can respect. Um, yeah, it was a book. The kids are a little bit one note, and the villain has kind of a now what motivation, but I still liked it. Um, I don't like it when people say you have a very vivid imagination to children to dismiss their concerns. I do have a very vivid imagination. That doesn't mean I don't know what I saw. Um, yeah. In this book, it makes sense for Maya and her friends to go off on their own because the adults weren't doing anything. I guess that's why it doesn't bother me. Sometimes, like in these types of books, adults will be in the process of making a plan better than the child could probably ever come up with because they're a literal infant. And the kid just doesn't wait and just goes off on his own because he feels like it's inaction when actually they're trying to be safe. And then the kid like gets kidnapped and like traumatized, and it's like you could have spared yourself a lot of heartache if you just waited for the adults, because it's not like they weren't doing anything, they were just taking too long in your opinion, which like yeah, okay. um I put this book underneath Maelstrom, no, above Maelstrom, because I like this book. Yeah. um Hang on, where did I put it? Yeah, it ended up being at the top because I liked it more than Maelstrom, which was at the top before that. And yeah, I also don't believe in lying to children in order to protect them, even in real life. It just, I feel like it just doesn't bode well in the long run, but whatever. The next book is Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia, who is quickly becoming one of my favorite authors because I have Mexican Gothic, I have Gods of Jade and Shadow, and I have The Beautiful Ones. Um, I'm so happy to support this woman. Mostly because at the end, like I said, at the end of God and Jade and Shadow, they didn't end up together, which I approved of so much. Because usually in a book like that, they would have. This one is a romance book, though. Um, yeah. So, Noemi, and that's the main character's name. She ends up being sent to go check on one of her cousins because things are getting suspicious, and they feel like she's sick all the time, and they're not sure what's happening, and the contact is low, and they feel like her husband is a gold digger, so that's fun. Um, so Noemi goes and checks on her cousin, and everybody's being very like hush hush, stay away from your cousin type. So obviously this is suspicious, and why are we acting like this? One of the cousins is really nice. Um, where is his name? Uh, Virgil. No, Virgil is her brother, her cousin's husband. Uh, yeah, it's all like weird. Catalina is the name of the cousin. Um, Apparently there's some like people say that there's a curse on the family because the family also lives like in a high house on haunted hill. No, haunted house high up on the hill type scenario. So that's not fun. Um, yeah. Noemi wants to take Catalina back to Mexico City with her, but the family won't let her, and she doesn't like that. Um, so basically, what happened in the family is that the reason that the family is doing this is because there's some sort of like DNA thing that they need that's keeping all of them young, which is very odd. And the book is very slow, but Francis is the name of the one that she falls in love with. He's Virgil's younger brother, I believe. Yeah. Um, so there's like some sort of curse happening, and Virgil's sister Ruth was supposed to marry somebody, but she was not in love with him. So I'm pretty sure what ended up happening is she like killed all of them and tried to kill Virgil too, and also herself, but it didn't work for Virgil. So yeah, and now there's this curse on the house, but like there was a sacrifice that they were doing, and Ruth didn't want to do the sacrifice, and it was a whole thing. So they burn the house to the ground. I believe Catalina dies. Francis is able to go with Noemi, which is nice. And yeah. The books, as I said before, the books that I like, I don't want to describe too much because I want you to go read them. The book was slow though. It felt like kind of a slog. Francis was the only character that I actually like. Noemi, while a strong character, isn't really the most likable person. Um, Francis is sweet. Virgil seemed innocent enough at first, but clearly got abusive. And Catalina, I guess, was going to be their next sacrifice. I'm not sure why it took so long, but I guess there was like a money aspect with Catalina. Um, the author has a mix of like real life and folklore, which is fun. I like it. Yeah, oh god. Sorry, I just looked at what was next. I'm not excited.